All right, my friends, thanks for coming back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to talk about how to control our ball flight more through club face control, right? So I'm going to call this like the club face control playbook. This is going to encompass most of my general thoughts on how we can affect change with the club face through different stages of our swing. All right, now, before we go any deeper, you might already know, if you've kind of been through some of this information before, that the two big data points or variables that are going to control our ball flight would be face angle, which is today's video, and club path. If you have any questions on club path, there's a lot of good instructors that can help you. But on my channel here on YouTube, I have a whole playlist purely dedicated to club path. So I'd encourage you to check some of those videos out if you have any questions there. All right, cool. So let's talk about how we're going to affect change with our club face. There's three main areas or categories of when we can be affecting change here. And I do think that the earlier we affect change, the higher your likelihood for success. Okay, cool. So it would be at setup. I could mess with my grip orientation, making that stronger or weaker to get the face effectively sitting more closed or open in my hands. That's one. We'll talk more about that. Beyond grip and how the club face is sitting in my hands at address, it then goes into dynamic movement, right? So what we know is the club face generally wants to only open in the backswing and close in the downswing. Open and close. So if we're going to affect change there, we need to mess with that balance, right? Because anyone who's slicing it or missing with an open face, we know that their face is opening more in the backswing more than it closes in the downswing. And I did a video a couple weeks ago about like the timing in our swing that goes all into that. I believe most golfers slice it because we don't realize that you have much more time to roll the face open than roll it shut. And if you're not aware of that, you'll leave the face open, the ball will go out right. If you don't intervene on it, the game's counterintuitive, which is why my job exists. Your body's going to start manipulating path, and that could be a slippery slope, right? So ideally, we can affect change with face the way we want to, so your path is not going to get thrown off, because as we know, club face is king. I've talked all about that. Check out that video, right? The timing of our swing. So I can affect change with club face. I can either increase or decrease how much the face opens in the backswing, and then either increase or decrease how much that face closes in the downswing. Okay, cool. So let's start with grip orientation, right? Now, there's a lot of things that go into a good grip, but let's assume that you have a decent grip relative to style and pressure and how your hands fit together. They're unified. It's purely orientation that we're worried about, right? And that's kind of where club face control comes in. So let's say that a square or neutral grip is your hands kind of clapped together, palms parallel, thumbs straight down with a vertical toe angle. So that would be a square face and a neutral grip. If we want to make the grip stronger, which is anyone who misses with an open face and you want to close the face more through the ball, a stronger grip is probably not a bad idea. Honestly, I think the easiest way of doing that is just to close the club face in your hands to a certain degree and then use the hands and arms to square that face back up, right? So I rolled the toe over so it's closed, and then I kind of lifted my left hand and arm above my right hand and arm to square that face back up. From a down the line view, if you see a really strong grip, you might see that left arm kind of hover above the right arm. I'm exaggerating there, but now I'm going to have a really hard time opening it too much in the backswing, and this should make my life much easier relative to how much the face naturally wants to close in the downswing, right? And then I'm oftentimes getting someone into a stronger grip versus a weaker grip. If golfers are hooking it to the left, I'm usually going to do other things first before I weaken grip. And it depends on the player and their unique tendencies. But in general, most golfers miss with an open face. So oftentimes I'm dealing with a stronger grip or trying to make the grip stronger versus weaker. But you could do the same thing, right? You could roll that face open in your hands and then twist both hands to the left. It will be right hand and arm a little bit more on top of left hand and arm. And that then rolls that face back to square. Same deal here at down the line view. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but if my right hand and arm is weaker on top of the left, you're going to then start to see more of this left arm show up at setup. And there's golfers that struggle with the slice who do this, but I think, Colin Morikawa, I did a video on my Instagram not that long ago where you can see his lead forearm a little bit under the trail forearm, and that kind of signifies a weaker grip and a slightly open body alignment. He plays a fade though, and he also does some things in the backswing, which we're about to get to limit how much that open face would be a problem. Because it's not, he invites it with that fade. Okay, cool. So, stronger grip, left hand on top, right hand underneath for the face being more closed. Weaker grip, left hand a little bit more under, right hand more over to keep the face more open. But again, in review, I would be more comfortable prescribing that to a slicer versus I think it's easy to overdo how weak you get it. And in general, I'd rather a golfer have the face be a little bit too close coming into the ball versus open, because of the dynamic things that get created there, which we'll get to. Okay, cool. So stronger versus weaker grip. Now, in the backswing, right? Let's again always start with the face being open because the majority of golfers are dealing with that miss. I look at it right here in the takeaway. So once we get into the swing here, we're dealing with how much the face opens versus how much it closes. So if you're slicing it or missing with an open face, you might want to limit how much that face opens. So right here in the takeaway, when I was a kid, actually, they always would tell me that like the toe straight up in the air is square. In modern instruction, I think most people agree that now a square face is considered to be leading edge parallel with our spine. So that would be open. All right, cool. So if we want to limit how much the face opens, which I see all the time, this roll of the takeaway or roll of the arms in the takeaway, which moves the club head inside and it gets that leading edge too open. That's very, very common, right? So to limit that and increase or decrease how much it opens, right, keep the face more square, we could start working on some of this flexion and extension of the wrists. And that's what our friend Colin Morikawa does a lot of to offset his weaker grip. Okay, cool. So we have to hinge the club in some way. Rolling it could be one way, but flexing and extending the wrist could be another way. And we can see now that leading edge is more parallel to my spine. The face is even pointing more to the ground versus toe up or to the sky, which gets progressively more open. Okay, cool. So I could flex, extend my wrist to keep the face more shut. I sometimes call that the mirror takeaway, right? Because if the club face was a mirror, in this scenario, we want to keep the ball in the mirror's reflection for as long as possible versus the roll, we'd immediately lose it. Okay, cool. One thing I'll point out here, though, is when you roll the hands and arms, a lot of golfers, if I just roll them and then lift my arms, I can create this feeling that the club's behind me and I haven't turned at all, right? So if you're going to extend and flex these wrists in the takeaway, what you're probably going to find is you have to increase body rotation to now get that club around the arc. All right, cool. So let me pause there. One of the more popular videos I've created on my channel almost a year or two ago now, body turn versus arm swing. I think there's a very simple but effective concept in that video. So check it out, but I'll cover it really quickly. There's going to be some body turn in my swing, right? Always back and through. But when I turn my body, the club moves around the arc, but the face isn't moving much, right? Compared to arm swing. So there's going to be body turn and there's going to be arm swing in this whole sequence. But when I swing my arms, notice how the face opens and closes pretty aggressively versus that body turn, right? So if I move my arms more than my body in one direction of my swing, the face will move more, right? So if I get very armsy and not much body turn going back, that face will open. Versus if I just turn my body more than I move my arms, the face would stay shut, right? So body turn creates club face stability, which means it's not going to move much. So if I don't want my face to open too much in the backswing, I can really just turn the body and again, add a little bit of that flexion and extension of the wrist as I turn. That's a great way to get the club back without it opening too much. If you are someone who misses with a closed face and you hook the ball, again, you could weaken the grip and you could also potentially roll that face a little bit more open with the hands and arms. Now, in general, I'm always telling golfers, toe up is the most you'd want to go. So if you're missing with a closed face, you can experiment with getting this toe up in the takeaway. Because if it opens more in the backswing, then you have the freedom to close it more in the downswing before it becomes an issue with that closed face miss. Again, because we have much more time in the backswing than the downswing, and because so many golfers move with an open face versus a closed one, I'm always cautious here, right? Because the last thing I want is for this face to get wide open in the downswing, because then those golfers are going to have to flip to catch that club back up. And it could be one way of squaring the face, but not super powerful and not super consistent. Okay, cool. So at setup, I could go stronger to close the face more. I could go weaker to open face more. In the backswing, I can increase body turn and just kind of flex and extend the wrist to keep the face more shut as it goes back. Or if it's too shut, I could add a little tiny bit more arm roll back in there. Okay, cool. So that brings us from setup in the backswing, and now we're at downswing. So I mentioned earlier, club face stability, right? So in the downswing, what that would mean is the more stable my face is, the less it wants to roll shut or the slower it will roll shut. Versus if I don't want that club face stability, that means I want to roll the face shut faster, right? So it's actually kind of funny. I mentioned earlier that we want to affect change earlier in the sequence. As I'm talking all this out, I'm actually starting to realize that that's especially true for a slicer or someone who misses with an open face. So if you miss with an open face, almost always I would encourage you to keep it more shut going back. Either stronger grip to help with that, or some flexion extension of the wrist, because you'd want to reduce how much the face opens so you don't have to worry about fighting it as closed in the downswing. Why do I care about that? Because many people, when they fight the face more closed, I already mentioned the flip that can happen, but it's also incredibly easy to lose the club over the top of the swing plane if we're trying to fight it closed in the downswing. You see that all the time. Okay, cool. So if you're slicing it or missing with an open face, effect change early. I'm now starting to realize that if you're hooking the ball and hitting it pretty solidly, I almost do the opposite, right? So let's start with that. If you already have the face square to close at the top, which some of the best players in the world do, what we can do to try and balance this out is just create tons of body rotation, right? So sometimes what I'll do is I'll hop in there with a golfer, I'll get them to the top of the backswing, I'll put my hands right here at the butt end of the club, I'll have them turn and I'll resist them so they can feel this stretch right here in the outside of the lead shoulder as that lead bicep pushes into the chest. What that feeling does is it helps guarantee that we're going to start this downswing with more of our legs and trunk and not as much with our arms, right? Because again, body turn versus arm swing, if I can create lots of body turn that just drags this arms more into the ball, you're going to tend to leave that face more open versus, again, if we're slicing it, missing with an open face and the grip and the takeaway wasn't enough, then we'll sometimes give a golfer sort of this early twist of the handle with their face. Again, that kind of comes back into that flexion extension to get this toe to roll through faster. Because again, if we have to use the downswing to close the face more, and the earlier segments didn't do enough for us, we want to use the entirety of that 0.25 seconds versus so many slicers out there, they know they want to swing more inside out, so they kind of drop the club there, the face is wide open, and now they try to save it at the last second. Not easy to be consistent with. Okay, cool. So a lot of information. I'll pause right there. Grip orientation at setup, backswing dynamics to either reduce or increase how much the face opens, and downswing dynamics to either increase or decrease how fast the face closes. All right? I hope you find this helpful. If you have any questions at all about any things we covered or you want me to expand on anything there, let me know in the comments. I appreciate you watching. If you enjoyed it, consider hitting that like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.